Pull yourself together.
I was watching The Toxic Avenger Part 3, and I've got to finish this. So, now this video probably won't be displayed until after the May event, which is in just a little over a week. I mean, from the time of recording this. And how fitting that I am inking Foley on a day when that really special gift came in and really put a smile on my face. Seeing that people recognize the importance of the dogs, of the Bubbas in my world. And in turn, because they read the comic, you know, the Bubbas become important to them as well. In fact, I don't think anybody who reads the Bubba Patrol or has read the Bubba Patrol is not, you know, an animal lover in some capacity, or have a dog or cat or their own Bubba, if you will. Because, excuse me, these creatures mean so much to us. And it's so cute because when I did the video unboxing the little Foley, little crocheted Foley tribute, gotta give him the little bansa right there. Grayson was outside, and he came back in, and I showed him, and I said, "Look, this is Foley." And Grayson sniffed him and looked at him and kind of gave him a kiss and stuff like that. And so, typically speaking, Grayson, when he sees something that looks like a plushie, he is usually all over that, and he claims it for his own. So it was really dynamic to see that Grayson understood how special this was. He didn't attempt to like grab it away and like play with them or anything like that. So I had a little trouble when I initially drew this, roughing it out. Getting the little hind legs right. And remembering that when you look at the anatomy of how like a dog's front and rear legs work, they're a lot like a person's arms and legs, because the back legs, the knees bend backwards, just like a person's, and then the arms bend at the elbows, the front legs bend at the elbows the same way as well. The difference is how their ankles separate right here, and they have an extra joint at the ankle and then an extra joint where the actual paw goes. So it's pretty neat because you can draw dogs and cats, because they have very very similar leg structure. You can draw them doing all kinds of different stuff. And you can actually draw them in pretty dynamic poses. I mean, I didn't know if I was going to be able to pull off drawing a dog with the Spider-Man pose, for issue 3. And I just played with it a lot and just had fun with it, and remembering that this is a comic book, and kind of like the fun thing about comic books is physics don't exist here. You can pretty much do whatever you want in a comic book, and that's the really cool thing, is that you can do that, and it looks okay. If you did that like pose in real life, it would look really awkward. Even if a dog could actually do that pose, it would look extremely awkward. It wouldn't look realistic. So it's kind of neat seeing that come to fruition. And then the really neat thing about this cover, the idea to do the homage, it was actually another homage that I had in mind that I wanted to do for issue 4, and I was just like, well, then that's another variant, and I don't know about that. And I had a chat with Bill, and I believe it was a week ago, and I was asking him his opinion about homages, and he was telling me, like, well, what's wrong with it, with an homage? And so I started just to explain, like, how when, not that I don't consider myself a professional comic book artist, but like a lot of other people may not, because I've never worked for Marvel or DC, and it doesn't matter that I have no desire to work for Marvel or DC. It matters that I have not worked for them. So I would not, in a lot of people's eyes, be considered a professional. Even though I've been paid for commissions, I've, once or twice been asked to do some artwork here or there, predominantly by people who I don't think have a real grasp of what it takes to do a comic book. They just think like, oh, well, it's just 20-something pages of drawings. That's not a whole lot. But especially if you're interpreting somebody else's script and words and stuff like that, you have to interpret it specifically, but you have to get your own point across at the same time. And so talking to Bill about that, and how some people might say, well, it's an homage and it's not a great idea. And the idea for um, the actual, like, this issue's cover was going to be them gathered, all the Bubbas gathered, and Agnew saying the catchphrase that he says in the book, which is "Okie dokie, artichoke." Like, that was going to be the visual gag, because that's actually something that my mom says, "Okie dokie." I don't remember if she actually says the artichoke part or if she says just "Okie dokie." Um, and so everybody's suited up, everybody's ready to go to, combat the bad guy, to go on their first mission. And they're they're standing around in their costumes, and Agnew looks all like proper and everything, and Cypress is just sitting in the chair like waiting, and she's just like, say it. And then Agnew sticks out his thumb, and he's like, "Okie dokie, artichoke." And, like, the Bubbas look at him like he's crazy, like he's grown a second head. Cypress does a face paw, as it would be. And then you just see this, like, little foot enter the frame, and you pull back and you see Grayson on the floor laughing hysterically. And then, then Agnew says something that's, tantamount to, let's go change the world. And, he gets a kudos from Cypress for it. And it's, so it was going to be that, like, visual, because I wanted to have them on there. And with that scene, because I thought it was really important. And then I had this idea for another homage, and the whole conversation started with Bill. And Bill was just like, well, he agreed with me that, like, nothing in comics or in media, is 100% original anymore. And even if you end up doing something that maybe you don't feel you were influenced by, somebody's gonna, see something in it from somewhere, and they're going to, say, like, oh, well, this is where he got the idea from, and, that's not original or whatnot. And so it was our Avengers Assemble moment. And I decided to look up, I was just like, wait a minute, like, Avengers 4 is first time Captain America. Now they're saying in continuity, because they're saying the person who was Captain America in the 50s and in the 50s, that had all those other books, he was not Steve Rogers. So this is, issue 4 of the Avengers. It's the first Steve Rogers Captain America in the Silver Age. And so what becomes important about that is that the cover for issue 4 of the Avengers is when Cap joins the Avengers, and it becomes really iconic. It's a Jack Kirby cover, which is, never a bad idea to base a design on, because, Kirby was so dynamic. I never appreciated Jack Kirby before I hit, like, my 30s. I always thought Jack Kirby's work was, I didn't care for it. I felt it was, like, too simple. But what I love about his work is how dynamic it is, how bold it is, and I appreciate the perception of simplicity. Those bold lines. There was, Kirby didn't do that intricate cross hatching and all this crazy shading and stuff like that. The couple color separations back in the 60s and stuff was very simple, and they actually say that the color separations were some of the most expensive part of production of comic books. So they had a lot of I wouldn't say leeway with it, but that's why books in like the 60s and before then, and even into the 70s and some parts of the 80s, you weren't getting a ton of dimension in the colors. You were getting flat colors, and then the line art and the inking was actually what gave you your dimension. It wasn't the coloring. But now almost all coloring on comics is done digitally. So I don't want to say it's easier, because I've only been doing comics and I've only been doing color comics for a couple of years. So you can spend a lot of time doing colors, especially now that I'm doing almost all of my interior art, or all the interior art for the last 2 issues, 3 and 4, and then the Bubba files have all been completely digital. So it's a lot faster for me to do that. But it's not necessarily easier, as it were. So, but the idea came from talking to Bill, and then thinking, wait a minute, I think that would be a really good concept for this cover. Not the homage that I was thinking of, but, I think it would work really, really well. And so I reminded Bill of the image, and of course he was familiar with it. Most comic book fans are fairly familiar with, early Avengers books, but number 4, I would argue issue 4 of the Avengers, the cover, is more iconic than any other Avengers cover, and that would include Avengers 1. Yeah, I would argue that it's more iconic than that. And so I was just like, well, what about this? Because this is still the Avengers assemble moment. And Bill was just like, I think that works. So I roughed out digitally. I roughed out a piece, and I did it at 11 by 17, and then kind of put it forward with everything and parsed it out, and that's my rough concept right there. So then I just roughed everything out specifically for the piece, really light on the paper, and then went back and made it a little bit darker, a little more dynamic, added a teeny bit more detail, and now I'm doing the inks. And I'm hoping that what I say in this video ends up being true. My plan is to do paste ups on these. So I'm going to do the digital paste ups and have them either print them and paste them up, or do the rough of my indicia and my fake comics code and then my title, and actually like trace them out on another Bristol and then like paste them up on the page to have the full composition. So I'm hoping I'm able to do that. I think it would just add a lot to the finished piece, to be able to display it and stuff like that. And it'd be a certain sense of pride, especially coming from a graphic design background. So, I mean, that's about 20 minutes of this video of me inking stuff and talking and ranting about stuff and then going off on a tangent. But that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in whenever I post this, which will, of course, be after May 8th. There will be a link in the description for you to go and check out the different tiers and the different artwork that is going to be a part of issue number 4 of the Bubba Patrol. And it may lead you to Indiegogo or Kickstarter, but we're doing the live show on May 8th to raise funds with some tiers. And then we will have those tiers, whatever's left over or available in those tiers, that will go to be up for grabs for anybody who didn't attend. So it'll either be a link to non-con, it'll be a link to the Bubba Patrol, or it'll be a link to like Indiegogo or something along those lines. But anyways, thank you all so much. You have a wonderful rest of your day or weekend. And until next time, same Bubba time, same Bubba place.